Welcome back for the third and final video for your value project. This is the Chiaroscuro sphere painting that we've been working on. We applied our values based on this value map of kind of where we would put different values. We did a drawing of where they needed to go, and then we blended between the different values using the wet on wet technique. And we can see maybe there's a few imperfections on the edges, and in general, there may be some imperfections on the edges of the value bars. And we're dealing with value here. And we're dealing with highlight, light, shadow, core shadow, reflected light, and cast shadow. And we also need to become aware of the background and the relationship between the positive and negative space. Positive space is the sphere or the object, whereas the negative space is the background. And so the relationship between the object and the background is a really great tool for painters to be able to manipulate the illusion of three dimensions. So we're going to kind of do a little bit to kind of mess around with value in the background and see if we can't get the illusion of three dimensions of the sphere even greater by having the background tones manipulated for the illusion. Okay, so we're going to create a horizon line. We want kind of the surface of the table or something that this sphere is sitting on. So we'll put a horizon line maybe somewhere along here. And if you're more comfortable with just kind of sketching that in first, you know, give it kind of a general placement. Want to make sure they line up well. And so the background of the I think I'll actually use the number 3 value for the background. For the area behind the sphere. I'm dragging up a little of the number 4, but so at this point we're going to kind of be painting in this as a darker color. I think my palette might need a little bit of sauce on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of try to cut this edge too while I'm doing it, and try to get my sphere edge as round and tight as I can get it. Trying to create lines where two values come together. That's what we do with value studies. Lines are created where value patterns meet. So we use this brush and try to drag a bead of this paint around to create our darker background tone. And then I'm also trying to back up slightly and make sure my rounded lines here are staying true, so the sphere doesn't become wonky or something. And do this back here also. Trying to make sure your brush is in kind of a point, and you can kind of pull that horizon line over. Okay, and we just want to fill in the background with this middle tone to start. My line's lining up there, kind of. This one might have fallen downhill just a little bit. I'll correct that with the middle tone of the surface of the table. But just want to get it generally kind of roughed in at this point. Like I said, I'll fix any imperfections there when I start dealing with the surface of the table. So I can even paint over slightly if I if I need to, because I can just kind of wipe it out with the lighter middle tone on the surface of the table as we go. But I'm putting in kind of a general coat here. I don't want to see any white of the canvas between the sphere and the background tone. And I'm also going to use this as my opportunity to kind of clean up. Kind of looking for my pencil line here. Let me pull some more of this over here. Looking for my pencil line there. I want to load my brush up really good and then drag and turn it upside down so I don't get into any wet paint. There's my pencil line. I'm just going to kind of drag the brush to clean up that line so that when I turn my assignment in, there is a notably high level of craftsmanship for my assignment, since I know that will be a grade criteria. High level of craftsmanship. Pride in my project, and no distractions, no bad craftsmanship that just takes away from the final result, you know. So I'm about to eat up all my middle tone here, and that's okay because I'm about done with the project. Now, I'm trying to get this in fairly rapidly because we also want to do a couple things to manipulate value in the background, because contrast is a big tool for us. If we want to create illusion, we got to figure out how to manipulate contrast, not just in the sphere, but also in the space around the sphere. So, in this area where the sphere is lighter, I'm going to take some of my darkest tone here, and I'm going to amplify the contrast right here. I'm going to work a darker tone into the background. We don't want the background to just be a flat tone. Flat areas of value do just that. They flatten out. But if you can have slight modulations in areas, then you get some illusions of kind of space or distance, or maybe even stuff in the environment around the sphere. If I make any mistakes while I'm going around the sphere, I just try to revise the line so that it's nice and rounded. But this darker tone, at this point, I'll kind of have it there, and then I'm just going to kind of blend into the background. So it's almost, I mean, it's there, but it's almost imperceptible. But there will be a value shift there that will make the illusion stronger. That the background's not just one single flat tone, and we've actually amplified contrast right there, so that's going to make it appear a little more illusionistic. And then we're also gonna manipulate the background tones. I might put a little darker tone maybe up here just to kind of repeat that darkness that happened right there. Just kind of blend it in slightly. It doesn't have to be amazingly notable. As a matter of fact, it's better if it's almost unnoticeable. I am using a bigger brush for this so that I can kind of try to get rid of any appearance of blending marks or anything. And then down here and here, particularly right here, I'm going to try to make the background lighten up imperceptibly so that the background tone has contrast with the area of shadow. Forgive me for flipping it upside down. It's almost already there, but just by adding a little emphasis of that lighter tone. Now again, I don't want it to be that notable. I'm just trying to get some of that value in there at this point. And then I'm going to try to blend it out. But by creating more contrast right there with the darker part of the sphere, we wind up kind of, again, amplifying the illusion of 3 dimensions. this to fade out. Like I said, I didn't really want it that light. I was just trying to get some paint in the game there. So let's see if we can get this stuff to start to blend out. So we're manipulating contrast, and again, we want it kind of imperceptible. I don't want to lose my rounded points. There we go. So now you can see what we did. We put in a flat background until we made it slightly lighter over here, made it slightly darker over here, and then maybe I'll put a tiny bit of light down here also, not less than that side, but just to underscore the little bit of shadow on the sphere right there. And then I need to round this a little bit better. You can see me constantly revising this outline to get my sphere, the roundness of my sphere, somehow more satisfactory in some way. Okay. Give it just the slightest bit more shift right there. And so what we have here is a technique that allows us to augment the illusion of 3 dimensions. If you can have an object lighter than the background and darker than the background at the same time, your illusion of 3 dimensions is amplified. So the value flip-flop is a great tool for a painter. We're going to try to do some same principles down here in the surface of the table. I'm going to reassert this line just a little bit where I see some white of the canvas peeking through there, and that is not the standard of craftsmanship we're after. Okay, so now we're gonna choose a lighter tone for the table surface. And here we go. I'm going to use this number 3 here to kind of paint in the table surface. And again, I'll put down some of the paint, and it's a little watery at this point. And I'll use the excess paint as an excuse to kind of roll my brush around there, and then I'll once I got that point formed, then I can really feed it into the gaps there. Get my edges crisp here. And figure out, make sure I get my horizon line fixed and correct for this stage. Let me use a little thicker paint on this side. I'm going to rotate the painting just slightly. Let me move it down. You can kind of see the process just a little bit better here. So like I said, I got a bunch of paint on there. So a lot of times I'll just kind of, I know I need it to move it around, but I'm going to kind of take my brush and kind of roll it around to form that little point, which then I can use to get into these little moments that require a point. I got to figure out my horizon line here. I'm going to have to pull this up just a bit. And see. So we're just using a lighter middle tone for the background, the table surface, and a darker middle tone for the space out there that was beyond the table. And as we put in these background tones, it gives us the occasion to kind of clean up some of the edges. I'll turn my canvas like this so that I can have an opportunity to kind of get a better angle at the painting sometimes. Figuring out techniques that work for you is really part of the learning process, the active learning project, challenge-oriented studio art. You know, you're accepting the challenge of the project and then figuring out, you know, ways of working that seem to be most successful for you. I'm cutting my shadow there, and I'm gonna have to try to fix it. I'll try to trim the edge a little bit. I might have shortened it up a little awkwardly. Now I also need to go and reassert this line down here, the line of the actually I need to fix this horizon line. I got a good amount of paint here. I can put some down here. Just trying to get that looking right. And we need to raise it up on this side as well. Hopefully that's okay for now. Okay, now paint is staying kind of wet, which is good. I need a good chunk of it to make this crisp up this bottom line. Am I on the, not even on the thing. Let me raise it back up slightly. I'm trying to cut this line back in, clean it up to finish up the project. Color and pull this line as well as I can here for craftsmanship's sake, so that the overall success of the project is somewhat reliant on the details. And if the details are not done well and they're distracting, then the good parts of the project are kind of less able to gain focus. So being very cognizant of the details and presentation and the kind of finish. Like even right here where I made a little finger bullet, you know, I feel kind of compelled. I need to go and kind of just fix that real fast. Certainly before I turn it in. Even these two shapes could use a little touch up. Okay, so here we are, and it looks pretty good at this point. One of the things we might want to do, because a shadow doesn't have a hard edge, is, and forgive me for spinning it again, but I might actually want to go and just make a little bit of a blended edge for my shadow there. I just loaded my paint with my brush with some of the darker color, and just going along the edge here, just barely kind of blurring that edge so it looks more like a shadow. And then all the way around. I think I clipped this thing anyways. Probably need to stretch it back out. And this is the time. But we just don't want the shadow to look as hard as the three-dimensional sphere. So we're just going to give it a little blend right at the edges. All right. There we go. All right, the other thing we're going to do, we manipulated contrast in the background up there. We're going to do the same thing down here. So at this point, middle tones, we're gonna amplify contrast. And this is not emptied out. We want the background tones to contrast even more with what we got there. I'm mixing a little bit of the 1 and 2 together for a light tone that we can kind of use to amplify the contrast between the sphere and the table. Now this is where the table is being hit directly by the light, you know, and so it's bright, and the shadow there is the result of the sphere blocking the light. But over here is where the light is hitting the table, and so the contrast with the sphere becomes particularly important for us in terms of our illusion, our goals of creating the illusion of space here. So I'll put down some paint similar to when I was working on the upper background. You know, I'm not interested in it being that bright in the end, but I'm just trying to get some paint down there in order to create this contrast shift there, and then I want it to kind of fade out and again be kind of imperceptible almost. But amplify the contrast right there. Again, contrast makes things pop forward, and it will make that part of the sphere pop forward. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Add a lighter tone there to pop that sphere forward, and then try to fade it out, because these are tricks. You know, this is the painter's tool bag, and you know, the illusion is better if the viewer doesn't even realize they're being tricked. The other thing we're going to do, the light is hitting, you know, and being blocked by the by the sphere, creating the cast shadow. But we want to indicate the light kind of around the shadow. I'm going to push this down the light a little bit more. I think it will be more accurate in terms of shape. Okay. All right, and now again, we're going to amplify contrast on the table surface. You can see where we've had it going before. And now we're going to add a little bit here. This is the closest thing to us in the composition, so we're going to add a little bit of contrast right there in order to make this front of the shadow that's close to us pop forward in space. And with wet on wet blending, you know, you see me kind of getting some paint to kind of hit right there, but then you know, I don't intend for it to be that white, but I just want to blend it out into the areas around. Okay. So we've actually created 3 little emphasis where things are lightened up. So the background and the table surface both wind up getting these kind of value manipulations where we make the value slightly darker around the sphere up there, slightly lighter in a couple of other places, and then down here we amplify the contrast against the darkest parts of the sphere on the table, and then the front of the shadow, and that really amplifies the illusion. Potential we could even make the background beyond even darker, but I think the subtlety of it at this point works pretty well. So this is the final kind of format that your project will be turned in as this first exploration into value and wet on wet blending.